What would happen if you took Animal Crossing, combined it with Frogger, and added a sprinkling of Ragdoll physics for good measure? I'm always trying to find new ideas for game making challenges, and as I was wandering around my Animal Crossing village, I was struck by this sudden flash of inspiration. I'll admit, it's not the best idea I've ever had, but it's a good excuse to model, rig, and animate a 3D character, create some glitchy, horrendous Ragdoll physics, make my very first cutscene, and it means I get to talk about frogs. I just think frogs are pretty neat. So let's open up Unity and make this terrible game idea into a reality. My first challenge was to try and model an Animal Crossing themed player character. I learned a bit about 3D modeling for my fake Pokemon video, but this time I wanted to take things a step further by fully rigging and animating my model from scratch. The character designs in Animal Crossing are so freaking cute, so I was pretty excited by the idea of making one of them for my game. I was lucky enough to find some great references and resources online to help me make my own model, and I'm extremely grateful for the fact that Animal Crossing characters have little beach balls for hands. So I didn't have to go down the dreaded finger modeling rabbit hole. I'll probably have to learn how to model hands and feet eventually though, because according to my YouTube analytics, a small percentage of my YouTube traffic is from people searching for Yoshi's feet. So yeah, I mean, I'm not here to judge, so like and subscribe if you're a Yoshi's feet enthusiast, I guess. Rigging the character was surprisingly easy, and Blender is powerful enough to pretty much automatically set up the weighted interactions between the model and the bones for you. So after testing that all of the bones were posable and capable of moving at horrifically unnatural angles, I was ready to create some simple animations. Because I don't need the character doing any epic flips or wall jumps, I just created two main animation loops. An idle animation for when the player is stationary, and a run cycle for when they're, well, running. And just as I began suspecting that it was all too good to be true, it turns out it was. Because trying to move my model from Blender into Unity was a bit of a nightmare. No matter what I did, I couldn't get the animations to work properly, and I spent almost 2 days just staring into the soulless eyes of my T-posing character. And despite scouring the internet for solutions or advice, nothing seemed to work. I feel like there are really only two options at a time like this. You can cry whilst eating Kraft cheese slices, or you can dance. So after spending way too much time in Blender keyframing terrible dance animations, I was reinvigorated enough to bite the bullet, delete everything, and rig and animate my character all over again from scratch. If this version of the character didn't work in Unity, then it was pretty much game over, and I'd probably just have to scrap almost a week's worth of work. As I moved my new model into Unity, I could feel the nerves beginning to sink to the pit of my stomach, so I crossed my fingers as I ran the game inside of Unity's console. And the animations gosh darn worked! I was blown away as I moved my little character around the empty Unity void. I mean, it did take me a few days to figure out how to remove the lines on its face, and the weighting on the shirt is definitely not perfect, resulting in some bad stretching. But despite all these flaws, it feels like I'm one step closer to recreating the magic that games have supplied me with my whole life. And once I was done swimming in my own nostalgia and amazement, it was time to create some obstacles, collisions, and flippin' Ragdoll physics. Now, so far there's been a lot of Animal Crossing, but I promised you all some Frogger. So to emulate the traffic found in Frogger games, I created a sphere whose only purpose in life is to go left. Now that we have a player and a sphere, they're like two pieces of bread, and we need to slap them together to make a sandwich. I figured out how to make the player get knocked back when colliding with the sphere and crank the force value through the roof. You know, for science. I was pretty happy with this knockback effect, but it definitely needed some more oomph. You know, like a bit more flair and drama. So I tried playing around with Unity's inbuilt timer to create a super slick slow motion effect, and it was awesome. I really had no idea how to properly set up the Ragdoll physics, but I get the feeling that the character shouldn't look like a floppy noodle. So I fumbled around with the Ragdoll settings until I'd truly gone too far and created a stretch morphing Lovecraftian nightmare. Eventually I found some settings though that were glitchy and had model tearing and was super derpy, and they were absolutely perfect. And that's basically the core mechanics done, so let's move on to some level design. It seems silly in hindsight, but I thought that the level would come together really easily, despite having never properly modeled a 3D environment before. But I quickly became aware of just how naive I'd been. I did manage to set up some Frogger-inspired rafts for the player to run across, which I thought worked out pretty well. And I also made an Animal Crossing ground texture and tried to recreate the iconic Animal Crossing trees. But my lack of texture painting skills really held me back, and I realized that I couldn't bake any procedural Blender textures to my models without having to leave it for like 10 hours to render. So in the end, my level ended up being a Frankenstein's monster of my own models and free assets that I found online. I really wanted to use Unity's shader graph to create recreate the world curvature effect from Animal Crossing games, but after hours of failure, I'm not sure that I could pull that off either. To be honest, I'm pretty disappointed with how the level looks, but I'll definitely keep working on the environments right up to this video's deadline though, so we'll find out how it all turns out in the final reveal. But for now, it's time to wrap things up with some finishing touches. At this point, we have an Animal Crossing player, Ragdoll physics, and a Frogger-style level to traverse, but we still don't have an end goal or reward for the player. I played around with ideas like having the player reach their home or other villages, but then an idea struck me that was so perfect that I couldn't ignore it. It's so simple, so obvious. I mean, it was there the whole time. The end goal for my level is the froggy chair. It's a piece of Animal Crossing furniture so iconic that it should be in museums throughout the world. And after all of my level design modeling failures, I was so relieved to discover that a wonderful person had already modeled and uploaded a froggy chair online for free. I downloaded the model and added it into my level, and then I jumped back into Blender and tried to animate a simple cutscene to finish everything off. All that the game needed now was some music, so I spent a few hours in GarageBand trying to come up with an Animal Crossing inspired tune. This project had a whole lot of ups and downs, and I don't think it's my best work by a long mile, but I learned so much and put my heart and soul into it, so I really hope you enjoy my Animal Crossing Frogger game. Well, that truly was a journey. I'd love to hear what you think of my weird mashup game, and why not leave a comment telling me what your favorite Animal Crossing villager is. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to check out some of my other game making videos on the channel. Thanks for watching and all of your support, and I hope you have a great day.